Meanwhile, does anyone want to tell us about what they've coded in their class? I would love to hear. So we can unmute you. Just raise your hand if you can use the Zoom feature to raise your hand, or you can physically raise your hand here if your camera's on. I would love to unmute you and let you speak to us. Anyone want to share what they've coded in their classes?
I can see one hand up.
I can see two hands. All right. Prathiv, your chance to speak. What's up, man? Go ahead.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Myself, Prithvi, and I am very excited to meet you. Our ma'am tell us before 2-3 days that we have a class today, evening 5.
We are very excited to meet you also, Prithvi.
And I have, yes, sir.
How are you liking the coding curriculum that you're doing? I think there's a network lag. That's okay. He'll be back. Meanwhile, Anjali, would you like to go next? If you can hear us. Even Anjali's video is frozen for me.
Yeah, Anjali, you can switch off your video and...
Yeah, you can turn off your video, Anjali. I've asked you to unmute so you can say something. Yeah, we can see you now. Okay, meanwhile, let's try Mehak.
Hello, sir. I'm Mehak from SSC Narela. I want to tell about coding classes. All classes are really excited and we learn new things from all classes. And yeah, coding is my favorite lessons. All lessons are really favorite of mine. And I love gaming. और बहुत मजा आता है like coding करने में. So yeah.
Nice. What have you made, Mehak? Do you want to tell your friends about one of the games you've made or any other projects you made? Oh, she muted herself again. But thank you for sharing, Mehak. I'm happy that you are happy and having a good time in the class. Avika, do you want to say something?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I was very new to coding. Sir, I thought it's very difficult, but it's very easy and interesting. And I have made projects like Odd One Out game and many more. And it was
awesome.
Very interesting.
Good.
Yes, sir.
I'm so happy to hear that. I wish I could see more faces because then I would ask you to raise your hand, everyone, if you have made some games. But we will do that some other time when we get to meet you in person. I think we can get started. We have 150 now. So I think we can do this.
150. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, kids. Thank you, everyone, for joining this special speaker session that we have today. I think all of you have been going through coding classes. पिछले 2 हफ्ते में आपने रोज 2 घंटा coding classes किया है. You would have enjoyed what you're doing. You would have heard some of your friends talking about their experience. So I'm very excited about this session, and I hope you guys are too. Today we have 2 exceptional speakers, and I'm excited to hear them talk about their life journey. I'm very pleased to introduce you to Anshul Baghi, who's the founder and CEO of Camp K12, who's the partner organization who's been executed the coding class for us for the last 2 weeks, who've done an amazing job, and we are very proud to have them as partners. So we have Anshul, as well as we have Apurv Bansal, who's a serial entrepreneur himself. He's gone to some of the best universities in the world, worked with the best company, some of the best companies as well. So very happy to introduce Apurv Bansal and hear him talk about some of his life journey.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, Apurv. Thank you so much for taking time off on Saturday to come talk to our excellent kids.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Right. So, but before we get started, I just wanted to invite Upadhya sir. Dr. Upadhya is also with us. So, if you could just talk to students for 2 minutes about what you think about the coding program and how they should, they should leverage this opportunity before we start the session with our guest speakers today.
Oh, great, Sachin. You have asked me not to speak, but I was just listening, enjoying the way the children. I'm really they are enjoying the coding. I'm here, the participants. So thank you, the great 2 people who will motivate my children, and the Camp K12, the way you took my coding classes and the content creation. It's lovely. The actually the ultimate of the education is the enjoyment, and I've listened Mahak and other two. They are really enjoying. So thank you from my core of heart to doing such amazing work for my children. Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this. It's a big step forward for, I think, all of India to start with this initiative.
Right. So I think we'll get right into it. Just for the kids, I think for you to, for the next 30 minutes, we're going to hear Anshul and Apurv talk about their experiences. So it's going to be very enriching for all of us to hear them. And I would request if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box. We'll leave the last 15 minutes to take your questions, answer questions. I know a lot of us, I've spoken with so many of you. You are interested in entrepreneurship, starting a business of your own, either immediately after college, after school, or later. So I hope the conversation today serves as the name suggests, it ignites that spark even further, and you take that path of entrepreneurship, either in coding or anywhere else. So I'm going to hand it over to Anshul.
Awesome. Thank you, Sachin. So you introduced both of us. In fact, this session will be more about my colleague and my friend Apurv here. And we can talk about my journey some other time. But Apurv and we actually met at Harvard University, where we both did our master's degree, our MBA. Since then, I've gotten to know him. He's an exceptional founder and entrepreneur, but has also done some amazing things in his life, studied at the world's finest institutions, worked at some of the largest companies in the world. And yet after that, decided to build his own companies, not just once, but twice, and maybe thrice, Apurv, if we count the first startup. And he's what you would call a serial founder or a serial entrepreneur, someone who just loves to build things and make an impact in the world. So I am personally delighted to be able to invite Apurv to come and speak with all of you young budding entrepreneurs. I will be speaking in English during the session, but I think we'll keep switching in the middle to Hindi, and Apurv, feel free to speak in Hindi. I know that our students here speak both, but might sometimes be more comfortable in Hindi. So kids, today's session is all about building companies and how you are not too young to build your own companies. And at the end of the session, I would like to keep at least 15 minutes for you to be able to unmute yourself and ask questions to our special guest, Mr. Apurv. And so feel free to think of your questions. You can also message them on the side in the everyone chat mode on Zoom, and we'll come find those questions and come back to you and allow you to ask. Let me just start with a very quick introduction to Apurv, and then I would ask Apurv to start sharing some stories with all of you. So Apurv is from Delhi, like many of you. He went to school in Delhi at a school called DPS Arkepuram, and then went on to study at a college not too far from here, IIT Delhi. Some of you guys might have heard about it. And then he went on to build multiple companies after IIT, and eventually sold one of those companies to a company you might have heard about called Snapdeal. And one thing led to another. He ended up going to the US, to Harvard, which is a university in Massachusetts, in Boston, where he did his MBA. And after that, worked at Google. How many of you have heard of Google? Tech company? Yeah. Worked at Google in, I believe, Apurv, you were in California during that time, right? In the Silicon Valley. And yet decided to come back to India to solve problems and build for problems here in India. And he'll tell us a bit more about that, and to come back as an entrepreneur. And we'll learn a bit today about why, after doing all of those things he's done, he decided to choose to build companies, and what does it actually take to build companies, and how you as young people can build companies today with the skills that you're learning in your coding classes and your other classes at the very special schools that have been set up for you, these SOSE schools. So that's why we're here today. It's a privilege for me as well to be able to participate in this, and very excited to be here. So hello, everyone, again. And with that intro, let's just give our guest Apurv a round of applause to welcome him, and then we'll get started. Awesome. We're getting some virtual claps. So Apurv, over to you. Tell us a bit about where you are right now, so that they get a sense of your context. And then maybe talk a bit about when you were their age. So most of the kids here are in 9th grade. In fact, I think all of them would be 9th grade, and we would have a few teachers as well. take us back to when you were in ninth grade. What was on your mind back then? What kinds of classes were you taking? What kinds of things were you doing outside of class? If you were building anything, tell us about that. Favorite sports, favorite hobbies. Just give us a sense of what your life was like when you were their age.
Hey, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. No, great. First of all, thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to meet all the kids here. And yeah, Anshul, thank you for the very kind introduction. You make me sound, much more accomplished than I am. But yeah, I'll take that. Awesome. So yeah, as Anshul mentioned, like most of you, I am from Delhi. In fact, from a town next to Delhi called Noida. So I was born and raised in Noida. And yeah, I am in Delhi right now as we speak. I'm based here. I moved here after spending some time in the US, decided to come back because I wanted to be an entrepreneur and start a company in India. Also, I like to live closer to family. My family is in Delhi. So it's always been my first love. It's home. Back when I was in class 9th, which would be 2003. So that's 18. I don't think most of you were even born then. But yeah, about 20 odd years ago, almost. So nobody had laptops. I don't think we even had a computer at home, or we just about got one. And there was a very basic dial-up modem connection, which barely allowed you to do anything. Like there was no concept of surfing the web, or the cloud didn't really exist. So you couldn't essentially, spin up apps or do nearly as much as you could. The internet was very basic, restricted to email and maybe, chatting with your friends and family in different cities. So the only access that we had to a computer, a proper access, was in the computer lab of our school. And twice a week for 45 minutes each, we had access to that lab. And everything that we would do when it came to coding would be in that lab. The only language we were taught to program was C. I think that was as advanced as it got back in those days. And yeah, very basic. You would type a hello world program and you would feel you conquered the world. And that was as advanced as it got. And of course, the world has changed a lot today. And the reason I'm sharing this context is for you to appreciate how far the world has come and how, grateful one should feel these days to have access to the internet and, democratize information on your handheld, on your mobile phone. There were no mobile phones then. So when it came to projects, the only projects we really did in school were offline, non-coding projects. We would do some basic physics or chemistry projects, on a thermocol, or you would do some kind of clay modeling to put together some geography tutorial. But if you were really, really into coding, you could get access to the computer lab in school for some extra time and stay back after school to spin up some projects. My personal interest area at that time, in fact, it was mostly cricket, which was what I used to do 2-3 hours every day. But when it came to curriculum, my favorite was mathematics. And yeah, I used to spend some time after school, just preparing for the mathematics Olympiad and solving math problems. And that was where I got my pleasure from. So yeah, I didn't really have the access to, or none of us at that age had the access to the internet or were able to code the way you can today. There was no Camp K12 back then, which made coding easy and fun and delightful and accessible to everyone. So yeah, that was pretty much what I was doing when I was your age. And everything that I kind of learned was in the real world when I started working very recently.
I think we should take a moment and just appreciate how much things have changed, as you said, Apurv. So you mentioned 45 minutes of coding class per week. right?
Yeah, I mean 45 minutes twice, so an hour
twice.
and a half.
Yeah. So this program that these kids are going through is actually a very special program. And this year they're doing 2 hours a day. Is that right, Sachin? For 6 days a week. Yeah. So 12 hours a week of coding for them, made possible by these very special schools that the Delhi government has set up. And it's a very special privilege. And I hope all the kids here recognize that the exposure you're getting, this is quite innovative, quite progressive for its times, and also an early start that all of you are getting on a very important skill area that even most schools outside, even today, doesn't exist for everybody. And I'm sure we'll hear from Apurv on why this skill set is even important, how it has changed the way he thinks, or how, what he thinks is important for building companies. But you guys are starting to learn that confidence and those skill sets at a young age in 9th grade for 12 hours a week. That is quite awesome. So just wanted to give Apurv that context as well, and quite special for all of you. So Apurv, after you finished your DPS Archipurv studies, obviously you liked math, you were good at your exams, you ended up going to IIT. And I know that kids always want to know, how did you go to IIT, those kinds of things. We're not going to spend too much time on that right now. But I just want to maybe address your college journey together collectively across IIT and Harvard. You've been to the finest institutions in the world. Tell us a bit about what it was like to study at IIT, what it was like to study at Harvard. And given that you've studied in India, you've also studied in the US. Tell us a bit about what that education system is like, or what are some differences you've picked up on between the IIT system and the US system? And are there any skills you picked up outside in the US systems that you feel might be important? Or like, what are the skills you learned at IIT that were important? What are the skills you learned at Harvard that were important? And can these kids learn those skills in school through this program that we're doing and other programs that they'll do as kids?
Awesome. So to answer your question about the educational experience at IIT and Harvard. So, once you're outside, before you've kind of gone to these institutes, which the world considers prestigious, you feel like once you get in, you're going to be the king of the world and you will be conquering everything. And, it's like this magic pill that the world has given you. And once you get in, it's all like, it's amazing. After you go in, you realize that, you're not the only one here. There's like 1,000 people here and you're no special, as opposed to what the world your mom may have made you feel that, beta, tum IIT kar loge to bas sab theek ho jayega. Uske baad to life is all set. And you go in and you realize that, you're not the only one. Like there's like so many people like you and you're not special. And which is a very humbling feeling to have. It kind of, put things in perspective. And across, IIT and Harvard, taking nothing away from the schools, I think, of course, the schools are great. The curriculum is great. But if you had to ask me what I learned, or of what I learned, what do I think has impacted me the most or shaped my personality the most and helped me kind of meander my way in the real world the most, it actually had nothing to do with what I was taught in school. And there's a simple reason for that. Like, the world is changing so fast. What was taught to me in school 10 years ago is outdated today. It's not applicable in the real world. I studied civil engineering in IIT, and after I left college, I did nothing related to civil engineering. The only reason I studied civil engineering was because my IIT rank afforded me that branch. It's not because I was interested in it. And, I may have actually spent 4 years learning something that I was not interested in. So the curriculum of, in fact, any prestigious university, unless you are studying something that you actually want to implement in the real world, is not what these universities give you. What you get out of a university essentially is the peer set, friends like Anshul, who stay in touch with you much after you graduated, and you kind of learn from each other. You gain some confidence that, hey, you together with your peer set can do something that will hopefully impact the world. And yeah, if I look back at, what I took away from my IIT days, the most important thing for me was just some confidence to stand on my feet in the real world, and, my peer set, my friends and my network. And to your question on, how is foreign education better than Indian education, or not better, different? I would say the main difference is when you go abroad, you realize that there's a lot of emphasis on softer skills, emphasis on, how you speak, how you project yourself, what you say. At IIT, everybody around me was from India. We all spoke Hindi and we all were similar. We all were very similar to each other. At Harvard, there were students from more than 100 countries. And, for somebody who's lived in India throughout their life, you get to interact with people from different cultures. You have a lunch with somebody from Mexico, or you have a dinner with somebody from Portugal, and you learn about that country, that culture during that meeting. And you realize that the world is much more than the little bubble you were living in. And there is so much more happening in the world. And yeah, what the two most important things I would say I took away from my foreign education, one was, just a global worldview, realizing that the world is a much bigger place and than the little bubble you come from. And second, I realized that a lot of what is important in life is just like, the softer skills, how you project yourself in the world, for the lack of a better word, how you market yourself. If as most of, the products that you see on TV, the reason you buy them is because the ads are good. They are marketed well. The product may actually not be as good. They'll hire Virat Kohli to come do an advertisement. The marketing is good, and you're like, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to buy this powder or this cream. So what was taught to me at Harvard was a lot of what your success in the world is about: your confidence, how you project yourself, how you market yourself, and just having the confidence to go out and do whatever you want. It's not really about where you came from. It's about what you believe you can do. And yeah, so those were the primary differences between my foreign education and the Indian education. And just to take a step forward, I do believe that in order to succeed in today's world, you just need two things. One is the right attitude. You need the attitude to learn whatever it is that you want to do. And we are truly lucky to live in an age where the internet has kind of given everybody access to the same amount of information. You want to learn anything, go to YouTube, put up a class. You can access recordings from all these universities, and you can learn any subject that you want to. You don't need to be in a university to learn that. So you just need the right attitude and the curiosity to be able to learn what you want to learn. And I would say the second most important thing to succeed in the world is, having fun while doing what you're doing. Like, figure out what is it that drives you, what is it that you're passionate about, and just make sure you focus, you work in that domain. Because if you're working on something that doesn't give you joy, odds are, you'll not put in your 100% and somebody else will do better than you. And you guys are all 14, 15 years old. It might take you some while to figure out what is it that you enjoy. I only figured that out 4 or 5 years ago. So keep looking, keep experimenting, keep trying until you figure out what that is. And once you find that, just spend your entire career working on whatever gives you enjoyment.
Thank you for those perspectives, Apurv.
I'll just add.
Yeah, go ahead, Sachin.
Apurv, thank you so much for that answer. I think in terms of our students here, 2 or 3 main takeaways is, one is that we need to be open to learn, right? It's not just about what you learn in the classroom, but what you learn outside the classroom. School mein padha diya, wo kafi nahi hai. You actually have to go home and research, and the world is your oyster in terms of looking up YouTube, looking up areas of interest, learn more. तो सब बच्चों को वो करना बहुत जरूरी है. सिर्फ क्लास में जो पढ़ाया जा रहा है वहां तक लिमिट नहीं करना है. The second thing I think that you said is be confident in what you're doing. It's not about academics. It's also about soft skills, confidence, and other aspects that will make you successful in life. And the third thing I think is just finding your passion, and I think that's very relevant for students, especially in HE20, because we have 6 different specializations. This is for students to understand what is their area of specialization, क्या पसंद है किस बच्चे को, और उनको वही passion follow करना है इन 6 careers में से या किसी और career में से. They have time to find out. So just wanted to thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sachin. The highlights that Apurv gave, they actually match up really well with the ideals of the SOSE program, right? And I think the fundamental belief is that whatever these skills are that the world's finest institutions teach, that the IITs teach and that the Harvards of the world teach, we can actually build that skill set among young people through hands-on experiences, through real-world curricula at a much younger age. And Apurv and I were talking about this yesterday as well when we were catching up, which is that having gone through these universities, the greatest learning comes from hands-on experiences with a certain group of people, not from the curriculum per se. And if we can create that environment for kids, and there's no reason we cannot, and that's why we are all here. If we can create that environment where you all who are listening to this can start building when you're in 9th grade, can do things with your peer group, can have a chance to present your businesses, your ideas, your startups right now, then you are building the skills that someone builds at a Harvard University, but in 9th grade, and you have a head start on the whole world. Right. And that's why we are all here. That's why this program exists. That's why we, Camp K12, build the curriculum that we do. And you're hearing it from Apurv that having gone through these experiences, those skills make a difference. And so let's build those skills. And that's why we're here. Let's actually segue from this into how those skills and this kind of mindset enabled Apurv to do what he has done professionally as well, and how that led to startup life. So Apurv, your first startup was after IIT, before you'd gone to Harvard and before you'd gone to the US. Tell us a bit, take us back to 2012, 2013, 14, whenever you were building these companies. India at that time was very different. So today, everyone graduates from college and says, I want to start a company. Today, young kids in middle school say, oh, I want to start a company. They're exposed to moms and dads and others in their family who started companies. There are enough examples now, people have started companies. Back in 2012, 2013, 2014, startup was a very unheard of term. And I doubt anyone in 9th grade would have known what a startup is. What does entrepreneurship mean? But you, after going through the IIT system, having been very successful academically, decided to do your own venture. So take us back to that time. Tell us a bit about why did you want to start something?
I mean, see, as I said, it's about in life, it's about finding out what you're passionate about and just making sure you work on that. So I felt like up until college, everything in my life had been done because my mom was like, "Beta, ye kar lo, iske baad to sab sahi ho jayega. Bas ye aakhri cheez kar lo, iske baad to sab sahi ho jayega. Kuch aur karne ki zarurat hi nahi padegi." So everything in school, school mein अच्छे marks le aao, फिर IIT चले जाओ. IIT जाने के बाद भी I took up a job at this consulting firm called Bain. It's not like I liked or I really wanted to do consulting. IIT में सबने बोला कि इस नौकरी में सबसे ज़्यादा पैसा मिलेगा. And I was lucky that मेरा interview clear हो गया तो मैंने वो नौकरी ले ली. And essentially this is what is called the rat race. There is always a race. You are running the rat race and you get the first prize and you feel happy. But after that, when I was doing, this job, I realized, okay, I've done all these things in life. I've got good marks in school. I've gone to a good college. I've gotten a good job. But at a day-to-day level, I'm not having fun when I'm working. I'm not enjoying myself. And, what is the point of doing what you're doing if you're not having fun? Like, after you finish your studies, you realize that, एक दिन में 24 घंटे होते हैं. So 1 week has like 168 hours, 24 into 7. Take away like 50 hours of sleeping in a week. That leaves about 118 hours. If you're working for like 60 hours in a week, so you're essentially working for 50% of your awake time is spent working. And I realized if I'm not having fun when I'm doing that, then what is the whole point? फायदा क्या है कुछ करने का अगर तुम्हें मजा ही नहीं आ रहा है. And during my job at that time, the startup world in India was not as advanced as it was today. However, there were some startups that had become big. The most famous one was Flipkart. And Flipkart, the founders of Flipkart were 3 years senior to me from my college. So when I realized that, Flipkart and Zomato and all these companies had started out, they had become big, and the people who had started these companies were my seniors from my college. I felt like ये तो मैं भी कर सकता हूँ, इसमें ऐसा क्या है जो और लोग कर सकते हैं और मैं नहीं कर सकता हूँ. And इसको करने में मजा भी आएगा. I enjoy creating things. I enjoy always creating something from scratch. That was something I knew about myself even from my school and college days. In college, the most fun I used to have was when I was given a charge of, let's say, inter-hostel play activity, and I was in charge of putting together the entire contingent and writing the script and, directing all of it. That feeling of creating something from scratch is what gave me joy. So I felt like, starting a company would be an area where, I would get to experience that creation aspect. You create something that didn't exist and you gave birth to it. And hopefully that will create impact on the world. You will employ people, you will contribute to the development of your country. And that feeling was always there. But when I saw that people who were, not very different from me was doing it, I felt like I could also do it. And there was like, you only live once. There is no point not trying. What is the worst that would happen? You would fail. You will have to shut down the startup. You can always go back and do a job. Like anybody would employ you if you have experience running your own startup, because that gives you so much learning that any employer would be very happy to hire you. So yeah, the reason I did that was because I felt like I wanted to create something, and I felt like people like me were doing it, so I could also do it. So that goes back to my whole point of having confidence that you can do anything. Just believing that, you can change the world. If others have done that, then why can't you? And that's why I kind of did my first startup.
So Apurv, I think when I interacted with the kids here, I got to interact with some of the kids at the Dwarka branch, and then I've also spoken to some from the Lajpat Nagar branch. And one thing I noticed is these kids have ideas, they have companies they want to start, and they have apps they want to build, websites they want to create. How can they, at this age, get that confidence? And how can they, at this age, take that first step towards starting their companies while they're still in ninth grade?
Well, I feel like kids these days are very lucky to have access to computers and laptops and smartphones at home, and access to geo internet, which gives infinitely free data. The easiest way to start something is to spin up an app, code it, and put it out, like launch it, share it with your friends, share it with your family, put it out on social media, and see some feedback that you get. And after you do that, you'll realize, hey, I can create stuff. Like in the olden days, if somebody had to start a business, you know what they had to do? They had to go to a bank, they had to take a loan, they had to get some money, they had to buy raw material, they had to buy land, they had to construct a factory, they had to buy machines, and then they could start manufacturing stuff. That was what the concept of business meant 20 years ago. Today, you need a computer, you need an internet connection, and you need to know how to code. That's all. You need to just do that. You code up an app and you launch it, and there you go. You don't need money for it. You just need the confidence that you can build something. And how do you get confidence? You get confidence by trying. You try once, it doesn't work. You try again, you'll do better. You try the third time, you'll do, eventually you will get there. So you have to keep trying. And the ability to try today is so much easier than it used to be earlier. You can just like spin up an app, launch it, and see the feedback that you get. And based upon the feedback, you improve the app. So the only way to kind of try and get confidence is to like actually do stuff and get feedback from the real world and learn from it.
I think that's an incredibly inspiring message. The fact that, you all can do this, and the big difference between the world in which Apurv and I might have gone to school and the world we live in today is that the internet exists. It has made information accessible to you. The same information that's accessible to an IIT graduate, an MIT graduate, Harvard graduate is accessible to you. The raw materials that used to be required earlier don't exist. You don't need them to build a technology company. So the world is very different, and you no longer need to wait until you get a college degree from a particular institute to be able to get started. And that, I think, is a very inspiring message. I think I hear Apurv talking to you about how it's okay if the first time it doesn't work. And you will learn to stand back up. You will learn to build one app after another. And each time you build something, you will learn from the stuff you learned in the past. You will get better. And Apurv, I want to ask you here, did you have any such learning experiences where the first time things did not work out as planned in your startup journey, and the next time it worked out?
Of course. I mean, so this is technically my third time starting up. The first startup lasted 6 months. We didn't even launch it. It shut down before we launched. The second startup lasted 2.5 years. We launched something, it got decent feedback, but it didn't scale the way we wanted it to scale. And that's why we had to kind of sell it off to somebody. If the startup was doing well, we wouldn't have sold it. So that the second startup also didn't do as well as we thought it would. But what I took away from those two startup experiences was that, hey, मैं एक company शुरू कर सकता हूँ. मैंने 3 साल लगाए और मैंने 10 लोगों को नौकरी दी. उन 10 लोगों मैंने कंट्री के जीडीपी के ग्रोथ में पार्टिसिपेट किया. एंड ठीक है, इतना सक्सेसफुल नहीं हुआ वो स्टार्टअप, लेकिन काफी गलतियां करी मैंने उन 3 साल में, जिनसे मैं बहुत सीखा. एंड देन आई मेड अ लिस्ट दैट अगली बार जब स्टार्टअप, So I asked myself, ये करने में मजा आया कि नहीं आया? I was like, हाँ, मजा तो बहुत आया, और कुछ लाइफ में करने में इतना मजा नहीं आया जितना ये करने में आया. Then I made a list of मैंने क्या गलतियां करी, एंड बहुत लंबी लिस्ट थी, बहुत. अभी भी मैंने मेरे फोन पे, मेरे नोटपैड पे पड़ी हुई है वो लिस्ट. एंड आई टोल्ड माई सेल्फ, नेक्स्ट टाइम जब मैं स्टार्टअप करूंगा ये गलतियां नई गलतियां करूंगा, बट ये गलतियां रिपीट नहीं करूंगा. वो कहते हैं ना, यू हैव टू, इफ यू लर्न फ्रॉम अ मिस्टेक इट्स फाइन. If you repeat a mistake, then it's not fine. So over time, you just all you can do is not repeat your past mistakes. You will make lesser mistakes. And if you make lesser mistakes, your odds of succeeding become higher. So this time, this is my third startup. I'm not repeating any of the previous mistakes. And as a result, already what we have done until now is much better than what we had done in the first 2 attempts. Hopefully this one will work. नहीं चलेगा तो चौथा करेंगे, वो चल जाएगा. मतलब you have to just make sure you don't repeat past mistakes and be very conscious of enforcing that. But what I am staying true to the fact is I am doing what I enjoy and what I good at the entrepreneurs. They are great at kind of working at a bigger company. When I was at Google, there were so many people there who were great engineers, but they were very clear, हमें अपना खुद का business नहीं करना. But वो Google में बहुत बढ़िया काम करते थे. मतलब Google is such a big company, Google makes such amazing products. You need very smart, intelligent people to work at companies like Google. Those people figured out that उनको बड़ी companies के लिए product बनाने में मजा आता है, और वो वहां पे अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं. तो आपको जो मजा आता है वो फिगर आउट करो और उसमें अच्छा काम करो, और बस पुरानी मिस्टेक्स मत रिपीट करो. इतना ही कर लोगे लाइफ में तो you will be very successful.
I thought that was incredible. You're seeing an example of someone who is living the journey of an entrepreneur and who doesn't give up, and who has found something that he likes, something that he can stay true to. And so, Apurv, thank you for the incredible words of inspiration here. And you touched on, Sachin, did you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I try not to interject, but one thing is, Apurv's being super humble when he says that his previous startups have not been successful. He actually sold his startup to Snapdeal, which is no mean feat. So, might not be success from your standards of Apurv, but for us, that is something to aspire for. So we can build a company and sell it to someone else. It's good enough for someone else to
Absolutely. I want to jump into one final topic, and then we'll open it up to questions from the kids. And Apurv has already touched on it. He talked about big company life, and some people love that, and his experiences at Google. Maybe, Apurv, you can talk a little bit about what it's like to work at a large tech company like Google, and then tell us why you ultimately decided that after, I think, 1 year or a few months at Google, it was time to come back to India and do the startup journey again.
Sure. So see, at a company like Google, जब आप एक startup बना रहे हो, you are trying to create something that doesn't exist, and you are essentially taking part in the zero. उसको कहते हैं 0 to 1 journey. Zero मतलब zero मतलब nothing, it didn't exist. 1 मतलब something, it now exists. So 0 to 1 मतलब creating something from nothing. That is the startup journey. Google जैसी कंपनी ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट, तो उसमें जो भी काम कर रहे हैं, दे आर टेकिंग इट टू द नेक्स्ट लेवल. दैट इज कॉल्ड द 1 to 10 जर्नी. 1 मतलब कुछ है, 1 से आप 10 पे लेके जा रहे हो. तो स्टार्टअप जर्नी में क्या होता है, आप बेसिक्स, आप सर्वाइवल के लिए लड़ रहे हो. आप लड़ रहे हो कि हम कुछ ऐसा बनाए जिसकी नीड हो मार्केट में, जिसके लिए यूजर या कस्टमर पैसा देगा, उसको यूज करने में मजा आएगा, और वो कंपनी थोड़ा आगे बढ़ेगी, रेवेन्यू कमाएगी, प्रॉफिट कमाएगी. whereas at a company like Google, what you are doing is कि अच्छा चलो, something already exists and अब मेरे को इसको अगले स्केल पे लेके जाना है. यूएस में लॉन्च हो गया, अब इंडिया में लॉन्च करना है. इंडिया में हो गया, अब इंडोनेशिया में लॉन्च करना है. तो कंपनीज लाइक गूगल में what you are learning is, इसको कहते हैं structured execution. that you have to execute in a way कि जो ऑलरेडी बना हुआ है वो खराब ना हो. तो आप जो ऑलरेडी बना हुआ है उसको मेंटेन करते हुए आगे बना रहे हो. एंड उसमें क्या होता है, थोड़ा आपका स्पीड कम हो जाता है, बिकॉज यू हैव टू मेक श्योर दैट जो ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट करता है वो खराब ना करो आप. Whereas स्टार्टअप में ऑलरेडी तो कुछ है नहीं, यू आर क्रिएटिंग समथिंग आउट ऑफ थिन एयर. So the speed is faster, and that is a little more of an unstructured environment, जहाँ पे कोई प्रोसेस नहीं है, आप प्रोसेस फिगर आउट कर रहे हो. अब कई लोगों को लाइफ में थोड़ा chaotic ज्यादा होता है स्टार्टअप. बड़ी कंपनीज में इतना chaos नहीं होता है. chaos is it's more like कुछ exist करता है और उसको आप बस बड़ा कर रहे हो. Now some people in their life, they like chaos. They like when things are all over the place, सब कुछ उलट पुलट हो रखा है और उनको उसी में मजा आता है. कई लोगों को chaos में नहीं मजा आता है. They like more structured, more safe environments कि अच्छा चलो, मतलब कुछ अच्छा चल रहा है, इसको आगे और बड़ा करते हैं. तो मेरे को गूगल में 1.5 साल काम करने के बाद समझ आ गया था that I like chaotic environments, I like unstructured environments, and I like the 0 to 1 journey. There are a lot of people don't like that. They like more secure environments. They like more structured, less chaotic places like Google, where you are learning how to take things from 1 to 10. And वो आपको, as I said, वैसे पता नहीं होगा आपको क्या मजा आता है, वो आपको दोनों करना पड़ेगा. मैंने पहले एक स्टार्टअप किया, फिर मैंने गूगल किया, और मैंने रियलाइज किया कि मुझे स्टार्टअप में ज्यादा मजा आया था. जब तक मैंने गूगल नहीं किया था, मेरे को लगता था कि यार गूगल तो बढ़िया कंपनी है, यहाँ काम करने में मुझे बहुत मजा आएगा, क्योंकि इतनी बढ़िया कंपनी लगती है भी. इट्स वेरी ग्रेट कंपनी, बट until you experience it, you will not realize what you like and what you don't like. So that is why I decided that मुझे startup life जीनी है, and I decided to kind of move on from Google and come back to building my own startup.
Awesome. So I think this is a great time to just take a step back and let the kids direct the conversation. I'm sure they have lots of things they want to ask you, because they've been sending me messages that are meant for you, I think, using direct chat. So let's do this. Let's open it up to questions. And guys, use the Zoom feature to raise your hand. That's one way you can tell us you have a question. Or you can write a chat message, but please write a chat message to everyone. Some of you are messaging me directly. So write it here. I just messaged on the everybody chat. So just write your question here, or you can raise your hand and I'm going to call on you. So Paridhi, I can see you have your hand raised. Let's go to you first. Any questions for Apurv? Go ahead. I've asked you to unmute.
Good evening, sir.
Hi,
Hey.
Paridhi. Good evening.
Good evening.
I think
Paridhi, we can hear you. We can hear you. So you went on mute again. We're going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Sir, I want to ask that do you like to share some of your mistakes with us?
Yes, of course. So I would say one biggest mistake that I did in my first startup was I thought that कंपनी कुछ भी बड़ा बनाने में आप जितना ज्यादा काम करोगे और जितनी जल्दी काम करोगे उतना आप जल्दी सक्सेसफुल होगे. Do you guys understand the concept of a marathon? Marathon क्या होता है और sprint क्या होता है? So sprint is like a 100-meter race जो 10 सेकंड में एथलीट भाग लेता है. Marathon is a 40-kilometer race. उसको खत्म करने में 4-5 घंटे लगते हैं, ज्यादा लग जाता है. तो जब स्प्रिंट भागते हो आप 10 सेकंड भागना है आपको, तो आप बस पूरी एनर्जी लगा के भाग जाओगे एक बार में. और जब आप मैराथन भाग रहे हो आपको 40 किलोमीटर भागना है. सो आप स्टार्टिंग में धीरे भागोगे, एनर्जी कंजर्व करोगे अपनी, उसके बाद आप देखोगे और लोग कैसे भाग रहे हैं और आप धीरे धीरे स्पीड बढ़ाओगे. बिकॉज पॉसिबल नहीं है कि इंसान 4 घंटे तक तेज ही भागता रहे. आपको बीच में वॉक भी करना है, ब्रेक भी लेना है. तो माय बिगेस्ट मिस्टेक इन माय प्रीवियस स्टार्टअप वाज आई थॉट ये स्प्रिंट है, इसको बस जल्दी से भाग जाओ और जल्दी भागो एंड रेस खत्म हो जाएगी. वेयरएज मुझे रियलाइज हुआ कि ये स्प्रिंट नहीं है, ये तो मैराथन है. कुछ भी अच्छा काम करने में आपको 7 से 10 साल लगते हैं. ऐसा नहीं है आपने आज कुछ बनाया और वो कल बन जाएगा. एंड माय बिगेस्ट मिस्टेक वाज मैं वो 2-2.5 साल बस ऐसे तेजी से भागता रहा कि एंड तक मैं थक गया, मैं बर्न आउट हो गया. और जब डिसीजन पॉइंट आया कि अब अगला क्या करें, तो मैं राइट फ्रेम ऑफ माइंड में नहीं था सही डिसीजन लेने के, बिकॉज मैं भाग के थक चुका था. तो इस बार मेरे को पता है दैट ये स्प्रिंट नहीं है, ये मैराथन है. मेरे को 1 साल में नहीं बनेगी कंपनी, 10 साल लगेंगे. तो डे टू डे अप्स एंड डाउन से इतना फर्क नहीं पड़ता है मुझे पता है आज कोई दिन खराब होगा, अगला दिन अच्छा होगा. आपको जब बिलीव करना है कि आप 10 साल तक लगे रहोगे तो कुछ ना कुछ हो जाएगा. और आप लगे रहोगे. किसी दिन आपको ब्रेक लेने का मन है तो आप ब्रेक लो, किसी दिन आपको ज्यादा काम करने का मन है आप काम करो, किसी दिन छुट्टी लेने का मन है छुट्टी लो. अपने आप को ऐसे मत ट्रीट करो कि आपको बस भागते रहना है. उस तरीके से आप 40 किलोमीटर की रेस सस्टेन कर पाओगे. एंड दैट वाज वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट मिस्टेक्स आई मेड, आई वुड से, एंड आई एम मेकिंग श्योर कि इस बार मैं वो गलती ना करूं.
Great question. And thank you, Apurv, for just the honest and lovely answer as usual. Let's go to the next speaker here, the next student. And guys, now you can message on the everyone chat. Earlier it was disabled. Now you'll be able to message. So feel free to send it there as well. Let's go to Shashi. Go ahead, Shashi. I've asked you to unmute yourself. Okay, Shashi, there might be some network issue. So let's go to Manthan. Manthan has his video on. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, Manthan.
Hey, good evening.
Hello, sir. Sir, I am Manthan from SOSC, Rohini Sector 11.
Hi, good to meet you.
Sir, I want to know that have you ever thought for quitting that बस अब नहीं हो सकता मैं छोड़ रहा हूँ, and who have retained to the race, who helped you in that long journey?
Wow.
Yes, I have. Honestly, जब मैंने पहले और दूसरे स्टार्टअप में क्विट करने का थॉट ज्यादा आता था, बिकॉज मेरे को देखिए आप भागोगे तो आप गिरोगे, और गिरोगे तो आपको चोट लगेगी, एंड उससे उठना इट इज नॉट इजी. मुश्किल लगता है उठने में, उठ के फिर से भागने में. तो पहली बार जब मैं स्टार्टअप कर रहा था मेरे को पता नहीं था कि इसमें बार बार गिरना होता है. गिरना इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द रेस. मेरे को लगा था कि आप बस स्टार्ट से एंड तक भागोगे, सब बढ़िया हो जाएगा और ये तो एकदम परफेक्ट कहानी होने वाली है, जैसे अखबार में पढ़ते हैं कि उसने कंपनी शुरू करी और गूगल ने खरीद ली, इतनी बड़ी कंपनी हो गई। तो जैसे ही मैं गिरता था मेरे को लगता था कि अरे ये क्या हो रहा है, ये तो पता ही नहीं था ये होगा। एंड उससे उठने में थोड़ा मुश्किल होता था। एवरी डे वेयर यू बिल्ड अ प्रोडक्ट एंड द कस्टमर गिव्स यू बैड फीडबैक, यू लाइक दिस इज एट द एंड ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, आई कांट गो डू एनीथिंग बेटर नाउ। इस बार मेरे को पता है कि गिरना तो जर्नी का पार्ट है। आपको एक दिन बुरा फीडबैक आएगा तो आप उस पर इम्प्लीमेंट करो और आपको अगले दिन अच्छा फीडबैक आ जाएगा। तो अब मैं छोटे छोटे सेटबैक्स एंड फेलियर्स को दिल से नहीं लेता हूँ, उसको मैं थोड़ा डिटैच होके देखता हूँ कि ये तो देखो पार्ट है, इनसे सीखो आप, एंड सीख के आप इन पे इम्प्रूव करोगे तो आप अगला नेक्स्ट डे व्हेन यू वेक अप इट्स अ फ्रेश मॉर्निंग, एंड व्हेन यू वेक अप you can execute better. And you guys are very young. आपको आपके पेरेंट्स भी बोलते होंगे, पूरी दुनिया बोलती होगी, बट मैं भी बोलूंगा आपको, two things that really help me sustain my peace of mind and survive in this crazy world are exercise and meditation. So please make sure you make that a part of your habit, of your daily routine. Exercise every day, whether it is playing, it is running, it is yoga, do anything, but it's very important for your mind, not just for your body. And meditation is very important for your peace of mind. So when things become bad, these things will help you sustain yourself. So please make this a part of your routine. मंथन आप कुछ बोल रहे हैं लेकिन आप म्यूट पे हैं।
Manthan, I'll unmute you again.
And sir, I also want to ask that anyone helped you in this long journey, that is a part of your journey, or you have completed this race individually?
Listen, individually nobody can complete any race. We have to find people. There will be lots of people who discourage you and there will be lots of people who motivate you. You have to मेक श्योर दैट जो आपको नेगेटिव एनर्जी दे रहा है, कोई डिस्करेज कर रहा है, तो उसको आप अपनी दुनिया उसकी बात को यहाँ से सुनो और यहाँ से निकाल दो, और फिर यहाँ से सुनो और यहाँ से निकाल दो, और आइडेंटिफाई करो आपको पॉजिटिव चीजें कौन बोल रहा है और उनको साथ लेके चलो। बस यू हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई पीपल हु विल बी विद यू इन द जर्नी, हु विल गिव यू पॉजिटिव एफर्मेशन, एंड यू मे नॉट फाइंड दोस पीपल टुडे, दोस कुड बी योर पेरेंट्स, दोस कुड बी योर टीचर्स, but you keep finding such people and over time आपको ऐसे लोग मिलते रहेंगे, उनको साथ लेके चलो, उनके बिना you can't complete this journey.
Thanks, Manthan. I see Anjali has her video on, and let's go to Anjali. And then Sachin, how many questions can we actually do here? My guess is this can be the last question. We're at 5:58 p.m. So should we make this the last one? All right, let's make this the last one out of respect for our guest as well. This was scheduled for us 6 o'clock. So Anjali, you get the last question. Go for it.
Sir, I am Anshul from Dwarka Sector 5, and I want to know that which type of student you are in your school time. I mean, you are a topper or an average student?
It depended. In some time I was average, and some other time I was doing well. There was different classes I got different marks, so I was not a topper always, I was not average always. Some years I used to do better than others and it used to vary.
Okay sir, thank you sir.
Thank you, Anjali. So guys, thanks for joining us for the last 1 hour. I am personally very inspired. Apurv, I think the nuggets of knowledge and wisdom that you have given are nice to listen to again and again. And I think you've said a few things with a lot of humility, which a lot of the kids here, as they go through their startup journey, will appreciate perhaps once they're in that journey, right? Before that journey, it just sounds like advice. But guys, what Apurv has told you, I think he's just given you a lot of honesty, a lot of truth about what it's like to be in this world, what it's like to build things in this world, the fact that things don't always work the first time, but you stand up and you keep going. And the fact that you are not too young to do these things, because what it takes to do these things is ultimately confidence, which, as he said, you can build, and skills, which all of us here are working hard to make sure you get from your school education. So with these two things, you can really go out and conquer the world, whether that is going to a college of your choice, whether that's building companies of your choice. You have a whole life to live, during which you can create incredible impact for yourself, your family, and the world around you. And I think you've heard some great advice from Apurv that I think you can come back and listen to when you're actually doing that journey. We'll make this video available to all of you. I just want to thank Apurv for his time as well. So guys, everyone, please join me in giving a round of applause, a thank you to Apurv for sharing his time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it was great to talk to all of you.
Thank you everyone for your time, to the SOSE Schools Initiative as well for making these kinds of things possible. And we'll be seeing you guys through the program this year, next year, as you grow as entrepreneurs and as young coders. So all the best, guys. And thank you very much.